What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to some Dungeon Defenders 2. At this stage in the game, most people out there are aware that having a well-oiled machine or a nicely organized group of friends is a way to completely smash through the game's content. Having heroes that buff each other and can cross-buff, say, your defenses are an integral part of the endgame and just give you absolutely absurd amounts of power. So, like, when it comes to buffing heroes, having, like, a monk on your team to boost the team is going to be just absolutely huge. Having a countess on the team to boost the team can be absolutely huge as well, and will stack quite nicely with that monk booster as well. Now, one thing you don't really hear a lot of people talking about is pets, and pets do have some synergies that play very, very nicely with each other that can give you massive, massive gains in power. So today we're going to take a look through the common pet abilities and what can be used to cross-buff each other in a hero damage type situation. So most players out there are aware of like the generic DPS ability pets. You've got like Sandstorm, we've got Cyclone on the Automeow, and then you got things like Feeding Frenzy, which is the same thing as Sandstorm, but it's water damage. Then you've got like Snowstorm, which is the same thing as well, but a larger boost for a smaller amount of time. In addition, Snowstorm is frost damage. And then you got things like the Dragolich, the Ghost Whale, and then the Spooky Cats, or the Slimy Cats, with Cat Whale. So Cat Whale and Ghost Whale, first off, are basically the exact same ability. These abilities do not stack with each other, meaning if I'm playing with a friend and I use a Ghost Whale and they use a Cat Whale, we're only going to get the 100% damage debuff on the enemy, and they're not going to stack together. So with that in mind, these are basically the exact same pet. Now, the things like Cyclone and Sandstorm, Feeding Frenzy, and Snowstorm are all solo buff pets. So these are only going to buff the person that pops the pet. As far as these go, it's kind of up to you what you want to do. Sandstorm is the most commonly available, of course. It will roll on any pet that has earth damage. So any pet in the game with earth damage, you can reroll the ability and get Sandstorm. Sandstorm also has the highest damage increase out of all of these pets when you look at sustained DPS. So looking at it over the course of several minutes of play, the combination of the shorter cooldown and the nice duration makes up for the fact that it's the smallest damage boost of all of them. So Sandstorm and then Feeding Frenzy are basically identical to each other. The only difference is one is earth damage, one is water damage. With that in mind, these two pets are essentially identical. The only time you would want to go earth over water is if you're trying to fish for shatter combos. And then, of course, you'd want to go water over earth if you're trying to get some sort of water-induced combo from your pet ability. As far as raw damage goes, though, these are basically the same. The highest in burst damage, or most amount of damage you can get out in a short period of time, is without a doubt going to be Snowstorm. Now, Snowstorm has a 45-second cooldown, it only lasts for 5 seconds, and it gives you a speed debuff, slowing you down by 25%. However, this one is going to give you the most damage when you look at it over just that 5-second window. So as far as the 5 seconds the pet is up, you're going to get more burst damage out of Snowstorm than you will out of Feeding Frenzy, Sandstorm, or Cyclone. Now, when we go back to looking at the Dragolich type abilities, this is a debuff on enemies, meaning that Dragolich and Sandstorm are going to stack if two separate players are using them. So say that I'm on my hero damage engineer and I'm using Sandstorm, and you are playing with me and you're on your boost monk and using Dragolich, you can pop your boost and then Dragolich the enemy, which puts the debuff on the enemy. And then I can pop my Sandstorm to increase my personal DPS, which will also gain a benefit from the Dragolich ability. Now, what happens when you take this another step further? Say you want to add a third pet into the game. This is where I think a lot of people miss out on the power, as it used to be the pet ability to go for. It used to be the most popular pet ability used in the game. And today, you hardly never see anyone mentioning it, and that is Poisonous Tips. Poisonous Tips attacks deal 120% bonus earth damage for 8 seconds and has a 45-second cooldown. So it's slightly more damage, only 5% more damage than you would get with Sandstorm, and, of course, a longer duration, but a lower cooldown. So, once again, in this situation, just comparing these two pets side by side, Poisonous Tips, of course, is going to be slightly more burst damage, and Sandstorm is going to be more sustained damage with that shorter cooldown. Now, the thing about Poisonous Tips that makes it so special is Poisonous Tips is not a self-buff. It is a AoE buff. So I pop Poisonous Tips, you see the little poison effect. That is an AoE in the area where I pop it. Now that means if I am in a group and I run up to one of my friends, then that is going to apply Poisonous Tips to them as well. You see they get the little poison buff going on their hero. So that means in a 3-player group, in a 2-player group, you can go with, say, Sandstorm and Dragolich to get a double buff. In a 3-player group, you can go with Sandstorm, Dragolich, and Poisonous Tips to get a triple stack of a buff. Now, in many cases in game, 3 players is considered the sweet spot. That way the crowd control durations or crowd control returns don't fall off too drastically. However, if you add a 4th player into the group, say you're boss farming or something, you can get a 4th tier of these buffs that all stack together. And that, of course, is going to come with the new pet from the Harvest Festival that just ended. This one, of course, is a baby version of kind of a Dragolich. It is a debuff on the enemy. Fires a cursed apple that summons a scarecrow that confuses enemies for 10 seconds. Confused enemies take 25% increased damage. So now we got 4 pets that can all synergize with each other. So in a well-oiled 4-player group that is well-organized and ready to do some absolute beast mode, you're going to have 1 player with one of the general use self-buff pets, Sandstorm, Feeding Frenzy, Snowstorm, or Cyclone. You would have 1 with Dragolich, 1 with Poisonous Tips, and 1 with Call of the Scarecrow. And this is going to give you a 4-way stack of 4 different damage increases that do all stack on top of each other and allow you to do just some absolutely criminal things to enemies. So happy pet buffing out there, everyone. Of course, pets, they're generally used as just a stat stick, but their main benefit, of course, is their pet ability. And synergizing these pet abilities with others in your group are going to give you just absolutely enormous results. But that will do it for now. Thanks a ton for watching, and I will see you next time around. Take it easy.